Welcome today to Father Paul's talk. We begin with a reading from the Gospel for today, which comes from St. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 10. We have these words. Jesus says, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set man against his father and daughter against her mother. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it." Amen. When you read that chapter from St. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 10, it's full of hard sayings, hard words. And it is some of those hard words that I've read to you today that I want to share with you and to talk about. Jesus talks about coming to bring a sword, not peace. He talks about coming and separating father from son, daughter from mother. He talks about the way in which we are not worthy of him unless we take up his cross. How do we understand these words? They don't sit very comfortably with a kind and patient Jesus. We need to look at first to the life of Jesus himself. Jesus, in the end, suffered and died and yes, rose from the dead. But he suffered and died and was tortured because he divided people. Because people were so violently opposed to what he was saying and what he was doing. He presented to people a choice to be with him, to follow him or not. And that divided people. This is what you see in the pages of the scriptures. Matthew, the gospel writer, is also writing from a situation long after Jesus had died and rose from the dead, and how his community were under a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, coming through persecution, because they were followers of Jesus. And families were divided. People were set against each other in that community. And the same thing still happens today, particularly in some parts of the world, where to become a Christian and perhaps leave your natural community or family causes a lot of tension, even anger, and even violence. Again, for us today and for the early disciples of Jesus, to think about and look at the kingdom of God. Jesus talks about the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. Matthew's gospel talks about it many times. As the kingdom of God being here now and that which is to come, is about justice. It's about turning over the powers of evil in the world to establish goodness and bring down the walls of oppression and injustice. To, as it were, transform the earth, to make the earth more like heaven. Hence the words from the Lord's Prayer, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." The kingdom of God and the way Jesus brought it into our lives causes us to make a fundamental decision whether we are for the kingdom of God, whether we are for the way of Jesus or not. John's gospel, again, talks about the way in which Jesus coming into the world, the light of the world, brings judgment into the world. And fundamentally, that judgment is about what are you going to do? Are you going to choose life? Are you going to choose goodness and justice, that is with God? Or are you going to go the other way? The life of Jesus and the kingdom of God, by its very nature, means about us at times, many times perhaps, about self-sacrifice, self-giving, losing something of ourselves for something that is greater, the kingdom of God. to transform the earth, to bring goodness and life to others. The kingdom of God, in the way Jesus understood it, was about life. And life is something that is, for Jesus and for us, not something that's neutral. You cannot be neutral about the kingdom of God. You cannot be neutral about the life, which is God. You either seek the life, the light, you either seek the kingdom of God, or you don't. But you can't stand indifferently to it. And so Jesus, in these words, is saying, you've got to choose life with me or death. Or again, this passage, these hard words of Jesus are also about allegiance. They're also about loyalty. Jesus doesn't say you shouldn't love your mother or you shouldn't love your father. No, Jesus doesn't say that. But Jesus is saying your allegiance to me, your loyalty to me, your loyalty and allegiance to the kingdom of God, for which the very reason I came into this earth, that's more important than the allegiances and the loyalties you have to others. And Jesus is very powerful and very strong on this. If you're not prepared to make that allegiance, that loyalty, if you're not prepared to take up the cross, you are not worthy of me. The kingdom of God, the life of Jesus, is something that is fundamentally more important than everything. Something about transforming the life of the earth amongst us. Jesus says in that passage, don't worry about those who kill the body. Worry about those who have power over life of the soul. In other words, God. So to conclude, let me say this. In response to these hard words of Jesus, but in the entirety of that passage, when you read it, I hope you will. Jesus is saying to us as his disciples today, to be a disciple of mine, to be a disciple of Jesus, it will mean that you will suffer. Jesus says to us, but do not be afraid. Jesus says, I am with you always. And because I am with you always and in you, that which is of very essence of yourself will always be held in the loving hands of God. Seek life. Seek the kingdom of God. Seek the loyalty to Jesus above all things. That's the message in the gospel today. You cannot be in a place of neutrality with the kingdom of God. You cannot be a place in neutrality with God. Your life is either moving and adding something to the world in goodness and is working, if you like, with God, or it's doing the opposite. But it's not just standing still. Every action that we live in this life is either something that's good or it's not. The kingdom of God can make no compromises, and the life of Jesus makes no compromises. Choose life, Jesus says. Choose the kingdom of God. Be worthy of me. This is the way we might begin to look at these hard words, and they are hard words in the gospel today. Amen.